On today's special edition of NPS Now, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Samuel King, and Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Michael Thornton, will discuss the proposed $300 million operating budget and how it will increase academic achievement and improve educational opportunities for all students, as well as support valued teachers and other school employees. Coming up here next on NPS Now. Welcome to NPS Now. With us today is Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Samuel King, and Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Michael Thornton. Welcome to the budget edition of NPS Now. Thank you for joining us here today.
Glad to be here.
Well, let's get started, Dr. King. What is the school board and division's priorities for the budget this year?
The priorities for fiscal year 2013-14 consist of the 7 priorities that are very familiar to the community and to our division. They consist of, number 1, ensuring full accreditation, which is extremely important for us, and that item has been important throughout this school year. Supporting in the budget going forward, increasing academic achievement throughout for all students, closing achievement gaps as well, in addition to focusing on those students that struggle and might not master or meet standards. But in addition to that, that item focuses on enrichment and stretching and ensuring that we provide the rigor that's necessary. Item number 3, in terms of priority, improving climate, safety, and attendance, extremely important for us going forward, as well as becoming a school board of distinction. That emphasis will continue throughout. So funding proposals have taken that into consideration, as well as promoting our school division to reflect the outstanding accomplishments of the students, the staff, etc. Developing and coordinating a capital improvement plan for facilities, so in improving our building structures and certainly technology. We have extreme needs around technology to enhance teaching and learning as well. Lastly, attracting, retaining, and helping to develop strong academic families and highly qualified teachers and staff throughout our work. So very important for us as we move forward with the budget as well.
Good. What's our proposed operating budget for 2013-2014?
Proposed operating budget for us going forward for fiscal year 13-14 centers on a little bit in excess of $300 million, which is about 85% of the total, as well as grant funding, consisting of about $32.1 million, which is about 9% of the total. Nutrition, child nutrition, $17.2 million. Also capital improvements in terms of structures, around $3 million, about a little less than 1% of the budget. So total $352.5 million. Which is the total operating budget for us.
Within that budget, what does it entail? I've heard you say before you were working on a student-centered budget. What does that look like?
Well, when you think about the notion of a student-centered budget, it means that you make your decisions based solely on the needs of children, needs of our students in our division. And we've done ongoing analyses throughout, which consists of formative assessments, also summative assessments, so day-to-day performance of students, and analyzing those results in terms in what we refer to as quantitative and qualitative formats, utilizing that to then determine priorities for our budget and attaching a cost amount to that. But again, making decisions first based on the needs of our student population, and then bringing in a human mechanism, the human piece, the humanistic side that should support that work. And so that's been the driving force for us.
So that proposal, the proposal supports technology needs.
Yes,
anything dealing towards the classrooms.
This proposal actually supports safety nets, enrichment along that line, as well as extending those items of importance as we move forward. I mentioned earlier the need to address students that struggle, as well as the enrichment piece, provide the rigor that's necessary. And so there are some, I can bullet a couple of things that are of vital importance to us going forward. One being Achieve 3000, which focuses on the literacy piece. And so we have students that we consider struggling readers, and that's an intervention that is research-based, scientifically based research around that allows us to hone in on the needs of those students. But in addition to the literacy piece for those students that struggle, we have students that are already on target and exceeding the target. That intervention also allows us to enrich those students and stretch those students to grow beyond expectations and beyond the norm, utilizing a Lexile score, and I hopefully have an opportunity to talk further about what that means as well. Also improving our writing skills. We did an analysis, as I mentioned earlier, throughout the year and prior to, in terms of the needs. We all know that literacy is really connected, has a direct connection to writing. If you become a good reader, writing is a component that also strengthens that approach, or vice versa. And so My Access is another scientifically based intervention, web-based intervention that we utilize that gives children real-time feedback on their writing skills across basic genres or various genres throughout their work in the classroom.
So in order to support this type of budget, I think our viewers will love to know what is actually in our budget to support those type of things. So Dr. Thornton, give us a breakdown of our 2013-2014 operating budget.
Sure. As the pie chart illustrates, and in alignment with Dr. King just mentioned, this budget focuses on students and classroom instruction, where you can see in the pie chart more than 3/4 of every dollar is invested in direct classroom instructional support. If you were to look at what it takes to safely transport a child from school at the beginning of the day to house him or her safely in the school, the remaining program is focused on operations and maintenance, pupil transportation, information technology, and student attendance and health. So again, this budget is designed to focus on the child and to provide our educators with the opportunity to have that focus to maximize student achievement.
Okay. In order to support this budget, you have to have employees. So approximately how many employees do we have here in Norfolk?
Total full-time equivalents in Norfolk City Schools as proposed in this budget is just over 4,700. Of that, 4,000 are funded through the operating budget, which again is the day-to-day budget that accounts for daily activities.
Okay, so what is the major revenues sources that support this budget that we have?
Again, as the pie chart illustrates, nearly 60% of all funding is received from the state. The remaining 36% is received from the city appropriation through the Norfolk City Council, and then approximately $12 million is received from other funds, including impact aid, other locally generated revenues, and carry forward funds, or those one-time revenue sources to balance this budget.
I think we shared a lot of good information on this first segment, so let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion about the budget here on NPS Now. Welcome back to NPS Now. Dr. Thornton, this question is directed to you. I understand that the state budget provides funding for its share of a 2% raise for instructional and support staff. The superintendent's proposed budget, does it provide funding for the division's share of this?
It does. The General Assembly's final budget action in February on the 23rd does provide the state funding for its share of a 2% salary increase for instructional and support staff. Dr. King's budget proposal as presented to the school board on February 20th provides the locality's share of that 2% salary increase for all staff. You'll see in the budget as we go forward that total 2% increase is $4.2 million. The state is providing approximately $2 million of that $4.2 million. So again, it's on the locality to provide the bulk of the funding for any compensation increases.
Okay, and this even speaks to Governor McDonald's budget and the decisions with that, how we're aligning ourselves with what he's giving us and then what we're trying to do for our students.
Correct. It is important to note, though, the state funding for 13-14 is really a one-time funding source. So going forward beyond 13-14, the full $4.2 million cost will be a cost to be borne by the locality and the school division.
Okay. So what are the proposed changes in revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 2013? What are the gaps and some of the deficits?
It's a great question. As you know, the last 4 years, we, like many other school divisions around the Commonwealth, have struggled to close budget gaps. 13-14 is no different for us. We began this budget process with a $9.4 million reduction in revenues. Combined with some needed increases, for example, the 2% increase for all staff for salaries, an increase in health insurance costs for next year. The budget gap itself was about $18.4 million. Some of the strategies that we've had to employ to close that gap, because the superintendent is proposing a balanced budget within the revenues that we have available. Some of those reductions include reductions in non-school-based operating accounts, reductions in travel, supplies, contracted services, as well as reductions in central office staffing, nearly 38 full-time equivalents valued at over $2 million, and elimination of vacant positions. We also, unfortunately, we have to reduce instructional staffing at the secondary level. It is our hope that we will be able to achieve those reductions through attrition and voluntary separations.
How do you feel, Dr. King, about the budget that we're proposing right about now?
Well, as Dr. Thornton alluded to, it's a challenge. We are placing all variables on the table. The encouraging thing for us is that we do have the blueprint in place that, as I mentioned earlier, provides the guiding activity and focus for us going forward. So, as challenging as it is, it allows us to make informed decisions based on the needs of the division. And when you think about the kind of reductions that we have to make, that blueprint and the fact that we are moving forward with our strategic plan, those two things dovetail, and it has allowed us to prioritize reductions as well as prioritize expenditures so that it will align with the needs of the division. Mm-hmm. The 2%, I think, is huge. It's a statement to our staff that we certainly value the work that's done, both from a certified standpoint as well as a classified standpoint. All of the individuals that make up this team for our division are extremely important. All of those individuals are extremely important, and so to be able to work to deliver 2%, I think is a noble undertaking, because it does require that we take on some local responsibility to do so. But we do think it is important, especially in consideration of the fact that other costs are increasing. For example, the healthcare costs and that kind of thing, and of course, Dr. Thornton mentioned that, and so we think that we're considering all. We're in good shape in terms of being prepared to move forward.
When you came in July, you assessed our school system and you came up with a strategic plan. Share a little bit about the strategic plan with our audience.
Sure. Well, I'll first talk about the process, because I think that is what allows us to have the power that's needed with a living, breathing strategic plan process. We began the process by pulling together what we refer to as a microcosm of the community, made up of, for example, parents, students, teachers, building level leaders, but also business owners, faith-based, clergy, law enforcement, healthcare, post-secondary, etc. So a cross-section of individuals coming together, consisting of a group of about 30 individuals, to talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and those threats going forward for us, after having had an opportunity to look at relevant, pertinent data that did relate to our system and those things that are important for our system going forward. Right. So we were able to put those things on the table as a team, and then form community beliefs And I think that term community is extremely important because it really aligns with the fact that we were dealing with a microcosm of the community of sorts. And so they developed community beliefs around public schooling in Norfolk. From there, they moved on to develop a new mission statement and vision in terms of direction. You know, what are the, you know, we ought to aspire to great things for our students and children. So that team had the challenge of developing that as it aligns with the needs of the division. From there, they developed parameters, then they developed objectives, and lastly, they developed strategies going forward in this 5-year process. So we have 5 strategies that will take us forward. But we're in the midst of this process. We're going to spend the entire school year developing this 5-year plan. So we anticipate that at the end of the school year, we'll be ready to present it to the board and for their endorsement and their official action. At this point, we have multiple action teams that are out there working around those 5 strategies that they develop, which again reflects a cross-section of people from the community as well as the internal audience. And so we look forward to the work of those teams and look forward to that work coming back to the major planning team so that they can review that. And I wanted you to share that information because in order to have a strategic budget, you have to have a strategic plan.
And for you to come in and assess the district and say these are the needs and the things that we need to happen, our budget reflects what you've assessed. You got to inspect what you expect.
That's it. Absolutely.
Great. True. Well, coming up next, we're going to answer some of your questions about the budget when we come back from this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to NPS Now. Dr. King and Dr. Thornton will now answer some of your budget questions that we'll post here on the screen. And our first question is, I have a great concern about the lack of step increases and raises over the past several years. When are you going to institute regular step and pay increases for the most valuable asset of this school district, your teachers?
Very important notion. You know, as we alluded to earlier, we pinpointed the 2%. Going forward. We think that in the midst of a huge challenge that should be a statement to our staff. When you consider the fact that over the past 5 years, this division has experienced reductions in the tune of around $27 million, which means that over the past 5 years, that really pinpoints money that our children earned, quote unquote, but did not receive. When you lose at that rate, it makes it very difficult to have sequenced step increases and pay raises. So you also must consider that in the current year, of course, prior to my arrival, employees did receive a 7% salary increase to offset a 5% state mandated employee contribution to the retirement system. And I know that when you consider the public education arena, even when we're able to pass on raises, we just tend to still find ourselves behind in terms of competitive salaries. So, you know, we have a lot of catch up to do. And I want everybody to understand that we are cognizant of that. However, there are huge challenges when you have consistent reductions in revenue. We noted early on, as we did our analysis, that for this current school budget that we are proposing, when you compare the revenue this current year to the projected revenue for 2013-14, we knew that we had a projected $10 million difference in the revenue itself, not to mention the $18 million deficit. But we still deemed it important to focus on that 2%. So a long answer to the question, but we are going to stay true to the needs of our employees from a humanistic standpoint, but we also must be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollar and make sound decisions around that.
Exactly. Okay, our next question. Is the raise this year going to actually reflect on our paychecks, or is it not even going to be seen again because of the cost of insurance? With the economy and prices of everything going up, especially gas, I would like it to reflect on our paychecks. This past year we got a raise, but I am actually getting paid less because of the cost of insurance. Can you answer that, Dr. Thornton?
Sure. As Dr. King mentioned, his recommended budget for 13-14 provides a 2% salary increase for all staff. This 2% salary increase is intended to ensure that employees realize an increase in their take-home pay for next year. To that end, the budget proposal also includes an additional $2.4 million to offset nearly an 80% of a anticipated increase in health insurance costs for next year. Clearly, we're challenged. The last 5 years, the school division has absorbed a $6 million increase, or 33% increase in health insurance costs, again, intended to minimize the impact on employees. This proposal, again, is intended to have employees realize an increase in their take-home pay. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to do more than 2%, but again, it is indicative of our commitment to employees.
Great, great. Let's go to question number 3. Can you please share some of the research that fairly and critically examines the success of Achieve 3000, My Access, and SchoolNet in light of the money being spent on them? Dr. King.
Sure. These items are of paramount importance to us. As we have done our analysis, we know that from a literacy standpoint that on the average our children lag behind in terms of being on grade level and above as it relates to reading comprehension, vocabulary, etc. And we all know that that's where the rubber meets the road. So with that said, we knew that we needed scientifically based interventions to be able to begin the work of plugging those gaps to move children forward, and that's what we have begun to do. First, I will pinpoint Achieve 3000. It is scientifically based, it is research based, and when implemented effectively, you get results. Achieve 3000 focuses on a scientific item that connects to reading ability, which is a Lexile score. It gives students an opportunity from a web-based standpoint to enter into reading passages and also respond to those reading passages in an engaging manner. And once that happens, it gives them a Lexile score, which means that from a Lexile standpoint, it speaks to that child's reading ability, but also the Lexile score aligns with the rigor of the text, whether it's, for example, from a magazine excerpt, or whether it's from a text such as a book, novel, etc. So all those things are very important for us, and the research is pretty clear across the nation around Achieve 3000. When you implement it effectively, after as few as about 40 sessions for children, they improve their reading ability, their Lexile scores, 2.5 to 3 times more than the norm. And I think that that's very powerful, and that is the kind of push that we need for our children to begin to move from being struggling readers to on grade level and beyond. The other piece I think that's important to note here that's really, really ingrained in the research is that not only is it beneficial for those students that are struggling readers, but for those students that are already on grade level and above, or on the bubble, or the gifted child. This also is engaging for those students, and also allows them to increase their Lexile scores. I'll move on from that to My Access, where we all know that reading and writing are all connected. When we analyze our writing results, we saw a similar trend where in many cases our children lag behind others. And so we know that that was because of the lack of reading comprehension and vocabulary and all of the above. So My Access is a web-based intervention that allows the teacher the opportunity to free up time for curriculum planning and more time for one-on-one instruction for the student. In the past, our teachers have had to manually grade writing samples Well, anybody that has done this work knows that that is extremely time consuming. We have begun to train, have our teachers trained to do that. But if you're going to have to grade writing samples manually, we're really not working smart.
Right.
And so this is a resource for the classroom teacher, whereby from a web-based standpoint, a student can log on. The student is given a writing prompt across all genres. The student is able to do the writing sample. Once the student completes the writing sample, then it is submitted, and instantly the student receives feedback on that sample. The student receives a score that's aligned with the standards for this state, and also receives information in terms of what the student needs to do to improve. I think that that is really keeping a finger on the pulse of what matters as it relates to writing, and it allows us to do more for children and do it faster. And and that's what we're going to have to do to be able to plug those gaps. So a huge tool for us. Again, a resource for teachers. That means that this will replace and should replace the need for manual scoring of writing samples and writing prompts, so freeing up time for teachers. And training is continuing, so, and because we were able to implement this current school year, so training is ongoing as it relates to that.
And SchoolNet, that's something that we've had before.
SchoolNet has been a part of this system, I believe, for about 1.5 years. So it was here prior to my arrival. However, I'm very familiar with SchoolNet. In my previous job as a superintendent for the past 7 years before I arrived here, we used SchoolNet. And so it was a bit ironic that we had it here as well. So, and I was happy about that and encouraged. So we hit the ground running with that as well, because it really provides us a tool for data disaggregation. For example, any common formative assessments, any results from teacher-made assessments, any results from benchmarks, those things are input into SchoolNet. The data is there, and it's disaggregated by the all-student category. And if we want to know how our individual student subgroups are doing, for example, the ethnicities, whether we're speaking to the white subgroup, the black subgroup, Hispanic subgroup, Asian subgroup, multiracial, we can disaggregate those results to see how we are performing. And by the way, as a reminder, that has been a requirement under No Child Left Behind, that you disaggregate the results. And so that's important for us going forward, that we continue to know where each individual child is. In addition, we can break down students with disability. We can break down our economically disadvantaged students, which will be our free or reduced lunch recipients, as well as our limited English proficient students, to take a look at where they are by the system level, as well as by the school level, as well as by the grade level, the teacher level, and down to the individual child. Very powerful information to inform our work. That analysis allows us to then hone in on safety nets that are going to be important, hone in on enrichment opportunities that are going to be important for those students that are already soaring. So, and that is a research-based item as well that really works when implemented correctly.
This question that this viewer posed for us today, I think it goes back to the strategic plan. You've made the assessment, and now this budget is student-centered and is meeting the supports of what you're asking to bring in, which is a student-centered budget that focuses on new technology for not only the teachers but for the students in the classroom.
Sure, allowing teachers the emphasis. The intent is to allow teachers to work smarter. Teachers are already working extremely hard, so what we want to do is to equip them with the tools necessary to be effective as we go forward with children.
Wonderful. Let's go to our next question. Have you considered reducing some 11 and 12-month contracted employees to 11 and 10 months? As an assistant principal, I would be willing to have my contract cut back to 10 months in an attempt to save positions.
That has been considered. As I mentioned earlier, and I think Dr. Thornton also had the opportunity to interject, all variables are on the table and will continue to be on the table as we analyze. However, when we take a look at the school division has considered, that reduction in terms of the contract across the board for various positions. But such a reduction would result in approximately an 8 to 10% salary change for those individuals. And an 8 to 10% salary change is pretty huge. And as I mentioned earlier, as we do this work, The balancing act for us is to really pinpoint the needs of our division as it relates to our children, but also the needs of our employees, which is that human piece. Because those are the individuals that are really the boots on the ground that deliver the services. And so we want to do as much as possible to equip them with the necessities to be able to move forward, offering them positive reinforcement, being competitive with other divisions with salaries as well. So an 8% reduction in pay right now to anybody, to any individual in our division would be difficult to swallow. And so we're hoping we don't have to take that route. It's not proposed in this current budget to do that. But as we move forward into the following year or in the following months, we'll continue to take a look at it. And, you know, if we're forced to do that, you know, so be it. But it won't be because it's something that we just want to do. So right now, that's not something that we're implementing because of that huge change.
Next question. Thank you. What reductions have been made to central administration costs, Dr. Thornton?
This proposal for 13-14 recommends the elimination or reduction of 38 full-time equivalent positions in the central office, among the central office staff, valued at about $2.2 million. This proposal also recommends the reduction of non-school-based operating costs, another $2.5 million, as well as the elimination of some other non-school-based positions. It's important to note that only about 3% of the total operating budget is targeted at central office. So if you were to look at all of the reductions in our effort to close that $18.4 million gap, about 80% of those reductions are targeted away from direct classroom instruction. We know that some would consider we could do more, but again, over the last 4 or 5 years, this has been a continuous process of reducing away from the classroom.
Okay, and how many central admin positions you mentioned before?
38.
38. Okay, thank you, Dr. Thornton. Dr. King, what are the next steps in the budget planning process?
Next steps would consist of our scheduled during the month of February, during the 23rd, we scheduled adjournment of 2013 General Assembly session, and the reason that was scheduled was because we needed to really hone in on any changes that might have been before us so that we could make real-time decisions around our needs. In addition, coming up March 5th, School Board Budget Work Session and Public Forum for FY 13-14 proposed budget. This will be an opportunity for the public to come forward to give input and feedback. The board will, the governance leadership team, which consists of the board and the superintendent as well as the superintendent's designees, administration, will receive that input and feedback, make notes, provide it, use it as additional consideration around decision making as we move forward. March 13, School Board Budget Work Session will be another undertaking for us to continue to review the budget. March 20th is the scheduled adoption of the FY 2013-14 budget. April 1 will be our school board's adopted budget. At that time will be forwarded to the Norfolk City Manager. That's April 1. Following that, April and May, the City Manager presentation of a proposed budget to City Council, public hearings, Council Budget Work Session, and budget adoption by City Council. And following June 2013, final school board action for FY 13-14 budget if needed. And so multiple steps still to come.
Still to come.
But much work has been done up until this point. So.
I think we've shared a lot of great and valuable information today about the budget. I want to thank you, Dr. King, and you, Dr. Thornton, for joining us today. And also, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to NPS Now for this special edition on the budget. Our show airs weekly here on WNPS Channel 47, or you can view it online at www.npsk12.com. For budget updates, visit our website or log on to our Facebook page. You can even check us out on Twitter. Again, we want to thank you for watching NPS Now.